Yeah, we're going a lot of different directions. First of all, we'll start with what happened to the Los Angeles Kings in their playoffs, and now what happened to Los Angeles Kings this morning. Had to blame somebody. I think they blamed the wrong guy. I was shocked. The Kings fired general manager Rob Blake. Now, he'd been on the job 8 years. He took over a franchise that had won a couple Stanley Cups. He took over a franchise that had huge salary cap problems. He took over a franchise that had age. He rebuilt it multiple times. They fired Rob Blake, the general manager, because they've never won a playoff series with Rob Blake. He's fixed the roster. They had 50-plus wins this season, but they got ousted 5 times in the first round of the playoffs, and he's out. He drafted well. I went through the roster. He'd made 6 positive trades in the last year and a half. He was haunted by the one trade that initially did not work out, the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade with Winnipeg, but then he got Washington to take Dubois' contract. He's their problem. He got Darcy Kemper, the star goaltender, who's probably going to be number 2 in the Vezina Trophy. I feel bad because I think he was betrayed by the president of the team, Luc Robitaille, and they were tight. They were teammates for a long time through a lot of really good years. I just thought it was awful. Jim Hillier is still the coach, and he's the one that made all the tactical moves that I think killed him, losing 4 straight to the Edmonton Oilers. The new general manager coming in will have to make a decision on Hillier, but I like Blake. I don't know why you would fire Blakey. You wouldn't fire Robitaille, who's the business manager of a successful franchise. They should have given Blake an additional year, and Blake's got more draft picks, and he's got $28 million in cap space that he stockpiled. They could have added on to what I thought was a really good hockey team. I'm just really shocked. Winnipeg Jets.
Wow.
I heard you screaming at the TV.
It was unbelievable.
And you don't even live close to me. John was screaming. Can't believe the Winnipeg Jets scored 2 goals in the final 2 minutes of regulation after trailing, get the thing into the second overtime, and score on a deflection goal in the win, eliminate the St. Louis Blues. I'll tell you, it was a brassy decision made by Scott Arniel, the coach, to stay with Connor Hellebuck because he had a 7.50 goals against average in this playoff series. He'd been knocked out of 3 road games, got pulled because he'd given up so many goals to St. Louis Blues. He'd allowed 20 goals in 6 games. And then in the first period, he gave up 2 goals right in the onset. St. Louis had a 2-0 lead in Game 7, and Winnipeg just kept coming back. And the Blues are really dangerous. The Blues got 10 players who had double-digit goals this season. A whole bunch of guys that scored 20 goals on the season. And the Jets had to do this without Mark Scheifele, one of their star forwards who got a terrible hit and jolt in Game 5, has not played since. Stayed in a series without Nick Ehlers, who finally came back, didn't play very well last night. We were without Gabe Velarde for a chunk of time. They lost their big defenseman, Josh Morrissey, in the first period last night. They just kept pumping shots, traffic in front of the net. Jordan Binnington was stoning him. I think he had 46 saves, but they just put so many shots on net that finally pucks started to hit people in front and go in, or pucks hit a stick and bounced in, and Winnipeg moves on. They cooled off a Blues team that had won 16 of 22 going into Game 7. Man, my heart was in my throat. Game 7s are so hard, and I thought, oh, this is going to be awful in Winnipeg. They had the best record in the league, Vezina Trophy winning goaltender, and they're 2 minutes away from going on vacation. And I've been in Game 7s when your team is about to get eliminated and there's nothing you can freaking do about it. And I thought this was going to happen. All of a sudden, 2 goals in 2 minutes when they pulled the goaltender, and then they win it in the second overtime. It was just absolutely spectacular to see. A couple of other notes here. Edmonton Oilers. Tough decision after they eliminate the Kings. What are they going to do in goal as they move on to the second round? They're going to play Calvin Pickard, the career minor leaguer who backstopped him to win 4 in a row, or they're going back to Stuart Skinner, who gave up 11 goals in 2 games to the Kings. Oilers have a tough decision to make. New York Rangers, first offseason hire of a head coach, Mike Sullivan. He was unemployed for all of 2 days. Ex-Pittsburgh Penguin coach, 2 Stanley Cup rings. He goes to the Rangers. And in Vancouver, They're scrambling to try to start interviewing after losing Rick Tocchet. Vancouver's going to interview Peter Laviolette, ex-Washington Caps, New York Rangers head coach. They're also going to interview a guy who's got great credentials out of the American Hockey League, former longtime NHL player Manny Malhotra. He was their coach of the AHL team. So, John, a lot of topics on the table. Your comments on Rob Blake and your comments on Game 7 Winnipeg.
Well, I want to talk about Winnipeg, and I want to talk actually about the Rangers. So that Winnipeg game was crazy. And again, I'm still kind of a hockey newbie, but what an entertaining game. And one of the things that's fun, in sports in general, but in hockey specifically, is to look at the fans, and the cool thing about hockey, and you're seeing it more in other sports, is there's a lot of fans that are outside and they're watching on the big screen. Maybe they don't have enough money to get into the arena. And this series started, wasn't it 2-0?
Yeah, Winnipeg won the first two games.
Yeah, and I think, we're thinking, hey, maybe they're going to roll here, and then it ended up getting into a Game 7 in the middle of the third quarter. Everybody,
third period.
Pardon me, excuse me, third period.
Novice.
Yeah, there's no fourth quarter if there's only
rookie.
3. Yeah, I'm a rookie. In the third period, you see it was a whiteout, and most of the people had their hands over their face. I mean, they couldn't look, or they were just sitting back with their arms crossed, and I'm like, no energy.
They were pumping shot after shot on Binnington. He kept kicking it out.
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible. And so then you're down 2, there's 2 minutes left, and the fans they look like they're about to melt. They just look like they're going to have the worst night of their life. And then they get that goal with about 2 minutes left. And you're like, hey, there's a chance, there's possibilities here. And they pulled their goalie, and, and they had the advantage. They're taking all these shots, and there's 20 seconds left, 15 seconds left. You're like, it's toast. There's no way.
1.8.
It was 1.6, and I remember they had the puck kind of behind the goal with 5 seconds left, and then they passed it up in front of the goal, and I'm like, shoot the puck. There's only a few seconds left. They made one extra pass, and it snuck in with 1.6. I mean, there was absolutely no way to make a play. And then it goes not into single overtime, but to double overtime. And was one of the longest games, sevens or games in
third longest in history of the NHL. Goes back to 1917, I think. Third longest Game 7 ever.
Just incredible. I mean, so and I remember the St. Louis Blues. We didn't really talk much about them in the regular season.
Well, they got hot at the end, but by the time they got to the finish line, they'd won 12 in a row, and they forged their way into this thing. Didn't have home ice, but
yeah, they look really good. So Winnipeg is relieved. They'll go on to the next round. But just quickly on the Rangers. Last night, I stumbled across this new ESPN 30 for 30 that was about this day in history, and it was June 17th of 1994, when all these different sporting events seemed to converge on that day, and it was awesome. And the ESPN writers interwove the whole O.J. Simpson chase with A.C. Cowling, the Rangers parade after they had won the Stanley Cup in 1994 for the first time in forever. It included Arnold Palmer at the U.S. Open, the last time that he was on the regular pro circuit before he went to the seniors. It was a really emotional. It included the NBA playoffs, the Rockets and the Knicks at Madison Square Garden. Then Rudy Giuliani is out there for the parade with the Rangers, and it was Go Knicks. And there's something else. So there was Ken Griffey Jr. hitting his 30th home run by June 17th in 1994. And then that was the season that went to a strike. It was fascinating the way all these stories were interwoven. Of course, the O.J. Simpson was the big story, but it was interesting for me as a hockey newbie to understand more about how New York fans went through so much misery prior to 1994, and then they haven't won anything since, have they?
No. And they keep trying. They had a good team, and they fired the coach and new general manager, and he's kept making trades. So he got himself a really good coach in Mike Sullivan from Pittsburgh. So Hockey Hotline is open. Feel free to jump on board. Oh, Canada Network, I bet you got some opinions. Have you stopped drinking beer yet? Did the bars ever close on Portage and Main in downtown Winnipeg?
They're wiped out.
It was really
a wild night last night in Winnipeg.
Cool. All right, last topic on the